Hey guys, this is Chelsea. Welcome to my monthly media wrap up for May. That's hard to say. Talk about movies first, then TV, and then books. So let's get into it. First up, I'm going to talk about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Actually, I lied because I did a review on it already. So you can go check that out. I also reviewed Mad Max Furiosa, so you can check that out as well. That one I did a couple days ago. So I won't go into depth about those here. You can just go ahead and watch those if you're interested. But one that I have not reviewed yet is The Challengers, and I actually really enjoyed it. The first quarter of the movie, I wasn't sure if I would like it or not. There's a lot of spice scenes, which I don't typically gravitate towards, so let's just say this is not a film to watch with your parents, okay? That being said, I did enjoy hearing the story of how the three of them met, and it seemed like tennis was like the conduit for which we learned more about them. The serves that they did, how the tennis business worked, all that information really helped us learn more about each of the characters. And I found that the characters actually had different levels of dedication to tennis, and that helped us learn more about them as individuals. Like, for example, Zendaya's character, I felt like was the most dedicated. She had a clear plan for what she wanted for her life, and tennis was very much a part of that. She adored tennis, and that was what her main focus was. And the gentleman that she was engaged with, I feel like they also had different levels. Like her fiance, eventually husband, he was sort of teetering on how dedicated he was and how intentional he was with his tennis. And then the third gentleman, he was not very like all in with it, but he had a lot of passion for it. So I feel like that told us a lot about each of the characters and how they interact with one another. And the story spans over a decade of their friendship with one another. And so we learned a lot about each of them. And I know there's like a lot of memes about the music in this movie, but it's very dramatic and it's very loud compared to the very like mundane things that they're doing in the film. So I found that to be like in the background while I was watching it. So I was like unintentionally making fun of it in my head, but I really did like it as a film. And I don't really know a lot about tennis, so it was cool to see more about the business of tennis and just the rules of it. It's interesting because I have watched on Netflix Breakpoint and I absolutely love that series, but it's interesting because I feel like to be a tennis player, you have to have a very different personality. And it seems like ego is a very necessary part of it because you have to really believe in your ability as a tennis player in order to carry you through and to get to all these different championships and competitions. And that definitely shined through in this film, just seeing how hard they worked, how hard they trained, and what was absolutely necessary for them to get to that number one spot. So overall, I really enjoyed it, and it is a film I watch again. And I mean, the costumes, of course, are magnificent, and Zendaya has been very hyped up in this movie, and I really do feel like she deserves it. She did fantastic acting, and her co-stars did an excellent job as well. I saw a few of the interviews that they did together afterwards, after I saw the film, and they do seem to genuinely get along, which is really beautiful to see, and that really came to life on screen. So, love that. Okay, so I did watch The Circle, and I got to this game pretty late. I didn't see this series until like third or fourth season, but this season was spectacular because it had an AI incorporated into it, which was very creepy because this AI was a little bit too human for me, and just seeing how like the other characters really believed it was human as well just made it even more freaky. But the first quarter of the season, I wasn't really into the players that much. I felt like they were just not very interesting for me. But the more I watched it, the more I saw really like how their personalities worked and how that really came out through their gameplay. But yeah, for example, seeing QT and how she really is a very hard game player, like seeing her internal dialogue and how she made the decisions that she made was just very all-encompassing, and it was really cool to just see how those decisions that all of them made played out with the game as a whole. And I really like The Circle because I feel like the challenges that they give them are very unique. They're not like any other sort of game shows I've seen. Like I've watched Big Brother, for example, and I feel like The Circle really has challenges that really like pull out the different aspects of these characters' personalities. And I feel like I learned so much more about them in this game than I do in like most game shows that I watch. So I will watch the next season and I will keep watching the show. And I just really enjoyed the season, which I wasn't expecting. I also watched Luke season 2. I absolutely love the show. I just am rolling every time I watch it. I feel like Maya Rudolph is a very talented comedic actress, and I really love, okay, I feel like comedy writing is not something I've ever tried before, but it seems very difficult. And just seeing how the comedy in each of these characters, like individually, really shows me a lot about them. And like Ron Funches, for example, I've seen him live actually. My sister and I saw him, who was it? I think it was in April. And we were like on the stage, like on the side with him because he was at the Comedy Store here in Denver. Or sorry, the Comedy Works here in Denver. And we like shook his hand when we got off stage, and it's like really weird like seeing someone that you've seen in person and like been one-on-one with, and to also see him in a show. Like every time I see Luke, I'm just like, oh my god, I like shook his hand before, you know, which is really cool. Anyway, back to the show. I really love Luke because obviously comedy is the heart of it, but there's also this sort of question of how much money does a person actually really need, and what can you do with the money that you have, and what change can you actually bring to the world if you have that much money. And so all of these questions are scattered throughout, and there's like this common thread throughout the comedy as well. Like it's very ironic, but it's also very down to earth, and it's also not realistic because the questions that she was asking herself in the first season, like because she was over, like she had billions of dollars, right? So having that much money definitely keeps you like untethered to reality. And this season she really is focusing on what she can do with her money and the impact that she can make. And it's really important because I feel like this second season is also asking like the role of community and the role that that plays, and the life that you lead and what you leave behind and the impact that you can make. And so really seeing these people as individual characters, but then also seeing them come together in these like hilarious, uproarious scenes just really makes me more engaged in the show. And I don't check my phone when I'm watching it. I'm like trying to see what's going to happen next. And there's also like this romance element as well. So this show really has everything, but I feel like they really do a good job of bringing all these themes together in unique ways in each episode. And it's interesting because each episode is only like 25 minutes long, but there really is a lot packed in it. But it's more like well-rounded and more all-encompassing. I don't feel like it's dense. I don't feel like they're just trying to pack in as much as possible in each episode. It's very easy to watch, and it's very engaging, and I just can't wait for season 3. I'm just like, I just want to watch it right now. Okay, and now we're going to talk about the books. Now, next month, I do think I'll do the books in a separate video. I just feel like movies and TV belong together, but books are a different medium, and I just want to try to do that in a different video. So we'll try it for next month. But the first book I want to talk about is Finding Me by Viola Davis. I listened to this on audio, and I just love this woman. I feel like she's really impacted my life a lot, and hearing her story, I related to a lot of different aspects of it. And she's just such a good storyteller. Like when I was listening to it, if I missed a part, I would rewind it because I really wanted to get every single word that she was saying, because her voice obviously is quite gorgeous as well. And I really love this book because she talks about acting and the background of that. Like I didn't know a lot about just how hard it is to be an actor. I guess if I remember correctly, like only 5% of actors actually get to a point where they can live solely off of acting, which is a very minuscule amount, and I just had no idea. So she talked about the acting business, but she also talked about her life and how acting was very much a part of her from when she was a child. Like her and her sisters would do on like little plays and stuff. And so just seeing like how like far back acting really goes for her, and how it really grew her to be the person that she is today. But also what I really liked about her story was that she talked about confidence a lot, and I feel like most celebrities do, right? They're always like, oh, believe in yourself, like you can do it. Like we hear that all the time, right? But what I really liked was that she talked about how you don't believe in yourself every day, and like there's different aspects of your life that you believe in, and you piece those together, and the doubt creeps in, you know, and other people might creep into your thoughts and try to project onto you. But the importance of pushing through, even though believing in yourself is not always possible at every single moment, right? And even though she didn't always believe in herself, she knew that she had to act, right? And she knew that she had to go after certain opportunities, even if she told herself that she didn't deserve it entirely. And just her perseverance and her intentional choices that she made to be an artist, really. Like she really talks about being an artist, and not so much as like, acting as one thing or directing as one thing, because she's at this point in her career done a lot of different aspects of the process, not just acting, right? And so really just discussing how being an artist itself is difficult, but believing in the work and believing in wanting to express yourself is the most necessary part of it. And so yeah, I mean, I just really revere her so much more as a person, and I really just want to go back and watch some of her old work. Like I haven't seen Fences, for example, and I didn't really watch How to Get Away with Murder. I'm not really a huge like that sort of genre of TV, but yeah, I just want to like support her even more and watch her work. And oh my god, when she talked about her relationship with her husband Julius, it was just like it made my heart swell, because I'm like, oh my god, like that's love, you know, like supporting each other's dreams and really just like looking after one another and like giving each other space to be held and to completely be yourself 100%. Like that's really, it's just really awe-inspiring. And hearing how she talks about him is just like, it's so beautiful. So anyway, if you couldn't tell, I highly recommend this book. And I do think audio is probably the best way. I don't really listen to audiobooks that frequently, unless it's an autobiography, for example. But I've tried to listen to fiction books, and I just find that I get really bored. But there's really something powerful about listening to someone tell their story through their own words. Like I did that with Britney Spears' autobiography as well, and it just makes it more powerful. So if you do, I suggest you to listen to Audible. And the last piece I'm going to talk about, the last book, is On Writing by Stephen King. So this took me a few months to listen to. I'll also listen to it. Actually, I listened to this book on Spotify. Spotify has audiobooks now too, if you didn't know that. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, so I listened to this for a few months, and the first half of the book is very much his life and his story, which he says that the book is more on writing and not so much an autobiography, but that has to creep in because he's a writer and it's very much a part of him. He started writing when he was like 10. He wrote comic books and would just sell them out of his backpack at school. So writing is very much a part of him as a person, but it was also cool because he talked about the writing business. So like finding an agent, what to look for, the process it takes to become a writer. Like, and it was interesting because like for me, when I think about writing, it's like very ethereal and like fun, and it is fun, of course, right? But he talked about being intentional with your writing and treating it as work, and like locking yourself in a room, dedicating an hour, 2 hours, no distractions. And he also really heavily harped on writing for one person in mind. So for him, that was his wife. And so like thinking about what that one person would think of your work and writing for that one person. Because if you try to write for a broad audience, right, like everyone is so individualistic. And so it's really impossible to write a book that will be a catch-all for everybody. And really like your work shouldn't try to be for everybody. And it's impossible to like have that be your goal. So writing for one person in particular was really what stuck out to me, and having that be your main focus. It was cool to hear him talk about his faults as a writer. Like he talked about how he over explains a lot of things, which makes sense because his books are quite long, but I wouldn't consider them to be arduous. I feel like his books are very... Have I read any of his books before? You know what? That was a lie. I actually have not read any of his books before, but my mom read his books a lot. And so I just like hearing her talk about them. Like it was very easy for her to keep along with them and to read them for a long period of time because the story themselves are very captivating. And a lot of his books have been turned into movies, of course. So like Misery, I love, and It, and What Happened to Dolores Claiborne, like all of these stories, of course, Carrie, all these stories are very, very captivating. And so he talks about that a lot, like how to write for mystery and how to write really good characters. He says, like, he said, you have to be clear what their motivations are. You have to be clear on their dialogue as well. Like he harped on dialogue a lot, which is not something that I really do a lot in my writing. But just talking about how this person talks is different from how this person talks. And like a lot of his books have like a lot of curse words in it and a lot of racial slurs. And on one hand, he's like, I know that's not PC. And he's like, I don't agree with that character saying those things. However, he talks about it as like, that character would say that because that is the kind of person this character is. And so how the dialogue really brings out their personalities and what their drive is throughout the story is really important. So I did learn a lot from his book, and it just took me a few months because I don't know, I just feel like it was hard to listen to all at once because it's a lot of information, right? And so when you listen to a lot of stuff at once, I feel like it's hard to pick out what works for you and what doesn't. And so that's why it took me so long, but I did learn a lot from him, and it's definitely a book that I recommend to other writers if you want to learn more about the craft of writing. And he also like talked about the rules of writing, but how the rules are meant to not be followed all the time. Like you have to just pick what you want and what works for you and leave what doesn't. And it was just a very thorough, expansive, and detailed book about writing, but told through his life. So yeah, it was highly, highly recommended, I think. So yeah, that is my monthly me wrap up for May. Thank you for watching if you're here till the end, and I will see you guys for June. Oh my gosh, June. It's crazy, it's almost here. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.